Hey there, today we are going to have questions answered from an airline pilot. Many passengers have questions about things that happen in the airplane, and my husband, who is an airline pilot, is going to help answer your questions and fears somewhat. All right, the number one question is, what do the chimes that go off mid-flight mean when you're flying?
So pilots' workflow, in other words, we're the busiest from 10,000 feet down to the ground and from the ground to 10,000 feet. The flight attendants have the opposite. They don't really work until 10,000 feet when they go to work in the back. So because we're going into airports that are highly congested, lots of other airplanes, we don't want to be distracted by anything that's not necessary. So the flight attendants are told not to call us for anything until we get to a certain altitude, usually 10,000 feet. So we will often give them a double chime at 10,000 feet that lets them know we're at 10,000 feet, so you can call us for anything like, can you make it warmer? Can you make it cooler? And then it also lets them know to let the passengers know that we're out of the area where you're now permitted to use laptop computers and stuff like that.
Why can't we use laptops like while you're taking off?
That has to do with the frequencies that some laptops put out could affect the landing systems of airplanes. So they just ban all electronics like that till 10,000 feet.
It's not because they could, if it was bumpy or something, that could fall off the tray table and hurt somebody?
It could impinge an evacuation if you had to. So yes, it's big bulky items like that. So. And then if occasionally just in the middle of the flight you hear a chime with no announcement, that's normally the crew, the pilots are calling back to the flight attendants. And that's just how we let them know we need to talk to them, is usually a single chime you'll hear. That doesn't always mean an announcement's following it. It's just us calling them.
And what would you call flight attendants about?
I need to use the restroom.
Ah, okay.
Can you throw our lunches in the oven?
Okay. What dictates when you put on the fasten your seatbelt sign?
That's normally at the discretion of the crew, and you'll fly with many different types of pilots who, if they feel one little nibble or bump, they'll turn it on. Other people may wait till it gets really bad. We have a lot of technology now that looks at the ride that this airplane is getting, and it shares with all other airplanes in the area. So a lot of times we'll know there's bad turbulence coming based on another airplane ahead of us, so we might turn it on preemptively. But normally we'll just, we're kind of up to the discretion of the pilots.
That question was from Tiffany, and this one is from Marcy. She asked, how do I get out of the dreaded middle seat? And because we fly standby most of the time, we've had to buy tickets a lot the last couple of years because so many people are flying again, going on vacation. But we have also had to sit in the middle seat a lot. So do we know any tricks or tips?
I mean, now you can pick a seat when you buy a ticket. So that's the best way to do it, is to pick an aisle or a window. Middles obviously are the last ones to go. But once you get to the gate, if you really are in a middle seat, you can always ask, is there a way I can get moved to an empty seat? Just realize sometimes an empty aisle or an empty middle may be in the very back of the airplane, and your middle seat's in the front of the airplane. Okay. So just realize you may have to go to the very back to get what you want.
And which seat is your favorite?
I like the window seat because I like to look out the window.
Let us know if you like the window being opened or if you want it to be closed so that you can see what's on your phone to watch the movie. I like it closed and you like it open, right?
Not the whole flight, but landing and takeoff, I like it
His
open.
mother loves the window open every time. So basically you cannot just move seats before the door is closed or right after the door is closed to the airplane. You need permission from a flight attendant. And then what is the fastest way that they can know, like if there's going to be a delay or a cancellation, or like Marcy asked, if the plane is going to be now parked at a different gate?
I think using the airline's app is probably the best way to do that, to know, especially if you're connecting through a hub and you're going to change airplanes or change gates. So the airline's app is the best way.
And how do you really know how much gas you need to put on board based on the weight of passengers and their bags? Because there's no way to know the actual weight of bags, right?
Correct. So we work it a little way backwards in that. We put the gas on first because legally we have to have enough gas to get from point A to point B plus a reserve. And then that gets increased if our arrival airport has forecast to be poor visibility or something like that. So we start with the fuel first, and then whatever's left over weight-wise, we'll put passengers and bags on.
But passengers have an average weight that's set by the FAA?
The FAA sets a average weight for summer and one for winter, because in the winter they assume you're going to have heavier coats and things like that. So there's summer weights and there's winter weights, and it just recently went up. I believe it's now like 205 is what the average American weighs, is what they're considering. And then
Go
a bag,
carbohydrates in America.
and a bag weighs, I want to say like 35 or 40 pounds. Doesn't matter how big it is, they're going to assume that they all weigh the same.
So airlines who are restricting the weight of carry-on suitcases, we know the average now. Okay, I wear hearing aids. So one interesting question came from a passenger who wears a Cochlear implant. And I actually have my travel case for organizing all my batteries and things for my hearing aids from a family who sells these cases and other things because their son has a cochlear implant. And I asked her if he needed to take them out when they flew last month for spring break. And she said no. But a question that this person has is, she says she has to remove her speech processor, turn it off during the takeoff and landing until the seatbelt sign comes off because it interferes with your equipment. Do you know if that's correct?
I do not think so, and I was under the impression that any medical devices are exempt from that. If it's something that you need to hear, but I am not quite sure. I don't know if that was just a specific airline. I've never seen anything where we require that of people that wear those. So.
I do, if you do wear hearing aids or a family member who does, I have a video on airplane tips because a lot of people have questions about, especially going through airport security with the inconvenient hearing aids that some of us have to wear now. And then do you have a mandatory rest period after you have flown, like a 4-day trip or something? Do you have a mandatory?
Yes, and that is set mostly by the FAA. There's after I've been on duty a certain number of times, I require a certain hour of rest away from flying. So we cannot fly more than 8 hours in a day. Cannot be scheduled to fly more than 8 hours in a day. And then normally the FAA usually requires a minimum of 9 hours of rest. But that also depends on what you're doing the following day and the day after. So they just want to make sure that the pilots are not always flying tired. So they try to give you enough rest to recoup from a long day the previous day.
Okay, and one of our viewers named Sue, she is afraid to fly. Do you have some quick tips? We're going to be making a video all about turbulence for those people who are afraid or who are just curious about turbulence. So when it does get uploaded, I'll put it up there in the iCards for you.
The first thing to do is when you buy a plane ticket, try to sit as close to the front of the airplane as you can. The front of the airplane usually experiences less of the sway in turbulent conditions than the tail does. So sit in the front.
That happened to me on the last
And there is nothing wrong with you get on the airplane to ask to speak to the pilots. Ask the flight attendant if you could just ask the pilots and then talk to them. Tell them that you're afraid to fly, and they will hopefully always turn to you and tell you, well, we're expecting a smooth flight, and they'll give you what they forecast, that they know about how smooth the flight's going to be. And if this way, at least if you know that there is a chance, like I'll often say when someone comes in, hey, the flight's going to be great, but about halfway through, we do have a little bit of forecast turbulence for about 10 minutes halfway through the flight. So then at least they know that, oh, he said that was coming, and it's not a surprise.
And I've got some tips and tricks of what I do because I cannot stand turbulence. So I'll put that in in that video as well. Now, if you want to know about his job, he answers 20 questions that are kind of interesting. So I'll be sure to link that in the comments section now. It should be in the very first comment, and I'll have some other videos down there too. And then right above the t-shirts that I've designed for this channel, there is an information box. It's like a paragraph. So if you just can find the first few words of that paragraph and click on show more or read more or an upside down caret, you will see all the information that you need. Anyway, be sure to list your questions so that we can make more videos for an airline pilot to answer for you. Thanks for your time.